Greetings everyone. Today I would like to continue my random talk about the random stuff, and today I would like to talk about the communism. What do I think about the communism? Uh, what the fuck is just happened back there? So something like that. So speaking of communism, if this video was in Russian, I guess it would be much more interesting because I might get more audience, because the main language of the Soviet Union states were, this was Russian language. I do speak Russian. I can, understand Russian very clearly. Because of my education. My father gave me a good education. Father sent me to one of the first schools where this English started to this teach. Also, Russian was a part of this school. This, how to say, list, checklist, or this how I don't know. So yeah, communism. In my previous video, I told you that communism seemed so divine. So why it is divine? And I'm basically claiming that it's more divine than Buddhism, something like that. Speaking of education, joining the communism was a win move for a Mongolian. Win move. Thanks to communism, we basically have this electricity, and running water and all this, this, for example, this building where I live, all these apartment blocks, and etc., etc. So communism is the, this some course of history that made Mongolian, this modern Mongolian. But you must know that Mongolia is the most retarded country in the region. It's more retarded than the North Korea. I mean, in the case of this abilities. I mean, we don't have this, how to say, great factories, or this all this machinery, etc., etc. We import everything from the outside, and our life seems to be so luxurious. We are like drinking Coca-Cola, going to Pizza Hut, and this driving all this Toyota, and this all this stuff. It is thanks to like mining and this free trade. Basically, we are a very retarded country. So it was more retarded in the in this back in the history. So when after joined this communism, and after this horrible time of 1930s, in 1930s, this bunch of Jews were this captured in Germany and were sent to like these labor camps and something like that. But here in Mongolia in 1930s, these nobles were captured, these lamas were captured, and they were also sent to some camps, and basically they were this exterminated. And after that, a great war, this World War II started. So some say that this is a karma. You should not like kill those, the descendant of the Genghis Khan, and this Russian should not like this kill those these lamas, and because of that there was a greater karmic this and this because of that this Russia suffered greatly, something like that. Speaking of this suffering, one can say that Russians suffered greatly because of communism. Some elder people remember that some these Russian prisoners came to Mongolia to build a lot of stuff, and they were building this railroad, and these older people were in their teens, a young man. So they look at this this Russian prisoner woman and basically pity them, and these women were like this hungry. One older man this remembered that they were like fishing, and you couldn't this give them food because they were this guarded by the this soldiers with the this AK, this rifles, etc., etc. So there was this, how to say, the things that we enjoy now is built by the tears and sweat of some these unfortunate people. Mongolians were quite fortunate. A lot of these Mongolians went to learn something from this Russia. For example, this Mongolians went to Russia to learn how to make ceramics and also bread. So they came back and built the bread factory, ceramic factory, etc., etc. But in time, it seemed that bread factory is still useful, but the ceramic factory is like closed and forgotten. And now we import our these bowls and ceramic stuff from China, something like that. And like this, a lot of stuff was this learned from the Russians. Of course, the Russians had their own policy about Mongolia, and one of the reasons why it is quite retarded in some fields, like this steel refinery, etc., etc. I guess the strategic idea was that this warlike, this country, Mongolia, should not have iron or steel processing plant. It's better for them to have a bread factory and alcohol factory, something like that. So this was the smart strategic move from the Russians. One can blame, these neighbors for being retarded. This I'm so retarded because of Russians, because of Chinese. This is somewhat true, but I usually blame ourselves and this established, this Buddhism, etc., etc. Something like that. So let me this compare this Buddhism with the communism. And in my previous video I told you that this communism seemed so divine because this symbolism, their emblem seems to be like this rising sun, and Mongolian this man rider is like this hurrying toward the rising sun, and everything seems to be this perfect in a sense of this symbolism. But when I think about this man having his this rod that captures the horse, and he is this riding very fast, it seems that he has lost his horse. So he is in a hurry, and he is trying to find his lost horse, and he has this long road, and he is like searching for something. So it felt like this maybe something was wrong during this communism. This, a lot of elder people like to talk about this communism wasn't so this good. This social movement or communism, when a lot of people are together doing something, you basically feel yourself this little human being this society is building like this great stuff. I'm a little human being. What I can this do, this basically I'm like a little ant. I must help, something like that. So individually you are not empowered, like woohoo, I can do this, I can do things in my way. There is no such thing. Something like that. This mainly people talk about this. Everyone wear same clothing. There was less choice, and everyone wear same glasses, and there was less choice on a table. And this, for example, in later this times of communism, where there was less and less food on table, and all the meat were shipped to this other this Russian, Soviet countries, and we left with the inner organs, just with the inner organs, and we call it dam. You have this kidneys, liver, and this lungs, etc., etc., all the inner organs in a this stomach bag, and it is basically sold. And there was even a big line to get one of these inner organ bags, to at least to have a nice soup in the evening, and everything was basically losing its taste. There was no sugar, there was no salt, it was chewy, hard, something like that. So yeah, what I wanted to say, yeah, about this communism being divine. Yes, it did kill the nobility. I am claimed to be from this common peasant. My mother likes to claim that she is the noble woman, something like that. So I should have some noble blood. Yeah, this communism did water little, this grass. This Buddhism usually waters the big lotuses and all these fancy, this nobility, etc., etc. But in this garbage plants, these common people are basically left. And this Buddhism has this Hindu logic. You suffer because your ancestors did something bad. This is going to be the karma, something like that. So this is quite logical, but this is also wrong. They are saying that your father wasn't good. Your previous copy wasn't good. He did not work well. He did not give you better future, etc., etc. I'm thankful for my father that he gave me such a good education, and I never said this, father, I love you, or father, I'm very thankful, etc., etc. I guess you will say it when he gets very old. So something like that. So yeah, so this is wrong. Communism proved that this work hard, be humble, and you will get a good life, something like that. And it did water little plants, and this little grass, this grow, little people grow, and they get educated, and this a lot of smart people came, and these smart people did write this songs, did this painted this something this Mongolian, and this it did this increase, how to say, the Mongol spirit. Basically, this Buddhism was something foreign, and it came to Mongolia as a this part of how to say this political, because of some political reason you want to have a good relationship with the other in this Buddhist countries and something like that. So also, this, how to say, communism was very good at, this limiting the desire. Buddhism likes to say that if you limit your desire, you basically happy, something like that. But this Buddhism could not find a way how to accomplish this, how to limit all this desire of these people. Buddhism became something pathetic, like this some dude with this bald head is chanting, let the desire of these people be non-existent. I don't know what you can chant on Tibetan, so they are this saying that they this by saying all this prayer stuff, the power of words are going to affect the this environment in some this how to say divine way, etc., etc. All this like basically theory like this. They did not went this to improve people. I mean, the first this, how to say, this people who were planting the seeds of communism were going to the fields and this urging the these people to work, and this they came with their songs and dances, this promoting the communist ideology. They were like this nowadays this missionaries, something like that. So they did this they did improve the lives of common people by giving them education, and this they proved that it is possible to give everyone an education. Mongolia became 100 literate. No matter this, you may be poor, this, you may be rich, your kid can go to some building called a school, and they can this learn to read and write, and this education was available for everyone. So this is this greater plus in communism compared to Buddhism. Buddhism, this here in Mongolia does not try to teach, this does not try to teach common people. I guess they are mainly focused on the teaching their the next generation, this bold people. So yeah, this when you don't own this own property, you basically have no this greater desire. So limiting the desire was like was great in communism. There was no this greater alcoholic problem. Even these Russians already built this alcohol factory. There was no sex. In Buddhism, you have to limit sex, or you must not do wrong sex, etc., etc. But in communism, you can say that there was no sex on display. There was no like advertisement with this naked woman, or this old USA this advertisement where the housewife is being almost naked in their lingerie, something like that. So Buddhism seemed so, how to say, right and divine, so something like that, compared to this Buddhism. And it did create some kind of this society that this when there is a news that there was rape, something like that, the society would be like in shock. Wow, how can it be like this? It created such a peaceful society, and you were basically safe to walk in the dark, the streets, and there was basically this less crime, and crime was punished brutally, etc., etc. Maybe, I don't know, maybe this all this news about the crime was censored, and everyone was like in, how to say, in some kind of a peaceful state. But this peaceful state did not just last long. When there was no food, you get this angry. So you can notice that some communists may claim that because of God there is a chaos. God is something this abstract. You cannot like fully explain what is it. God acts mysterious way, and God and gods create this chaos, and we are bringing great order that comes from a human consciousness, that comes from a science, and this greater morality compared to religion, something like that. So this they like to claim that all this social progress can be made by human effort without asking God, something like that. Well, I'm a religious person. I guess I like chaos. Well, I guess that's pretty much for today, and thanks for watching.